A beauty blogger whose body keeps growing grass and blooming flowers, a man with a cat carrier who appears at the station on time at 3:30 a.m., a vending machine that can eat living people raw, and a woman who has had plastic surgery and specializes in harming beautiful girls.
코가 너무 예쁘세요.
How many terrifying stories have actually unfolded in this subway station? Pieces of urban legends buried by time are gradually lifting their mysterious veils. Dojung is a YouTuber with very low view counts. To revive her lifeless channel, she went to the subway station master to ask about the urban legends surrounding the station. After learning about Dojung's purpose, the station master asked her to leave. The station master disdained to engage in such things as making money off others' suffering. Fortunately, Dojung had come prepared. This station master cared nothing for money, but he was an alcoholic. And Dojung's grandfather ran a wine-making business in Jeonju. What their family never lacked was good wine. The station master was easily bribed, but he was only willing to tell one story. One late night, on a train, a young man named Jack was drunk. When the subway made an emergency stop due to an accident, he lay down on the floor and passed out. Fortunately, the passengers nearby helped him. Sitting on a seat, Jack accidentally caught sight of a long-haired woman, repeatedly hitting the door with her forehead. He didn't think much of it. As soon as the train arrived, he rushed to a convenience store to buy a coffee to refresh himself. The clerk kept scrolling through her phone and couldn't find a bottle of coffee for ages. Jack mocked her, saying she wasn't illiterate. So why was it so hard to find a bottle of coffee? But when he went to pay, he took the wrong bank card too. Jack smiled awkwardly. Once he left the store, he cursed the clerk for being empty-headed. He took a gulp of coffee and then went back to take the subway to transfer. This time, he saw that door-hitting woman again. Watching the people around him get off the train, the long-haired woman hit harder and harder. Jack hurriedly got into another carriage, muttering curses at that woman. Just then, his mother suddenly called. He tried his best to keep his tone normal so she wouldn't tell he'd been drinking, but his mother knew Jack's temperament and was about to scold him. Halfway through her words, she suddenly fell silent. Jack felt confused. When he checked his phone, he found his mother had sent a video. In the footage, the familiar long-haired woman was standing outside the subway, hitting the door. Jack couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. He turned his head, and saw the uncle across from him also start hitting the wall. The long-haired woman even darted outside this carriage. Both of them, keeping in rhythm, hit faster and faster. The lights in the subway suddenly went out. Jack grabbed his phone to check around, and found that the two people from just now were gone. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the long-haired woman appeared again, and this time, the force of her hitting the door was stronger. With one hard push, she broke her head off. The severed head rolled over to Jack's side, scaring him into running away at once. Unexpectedly, the headless woman also chased after him quickly. The next second Jack woke up from his dream, breaking out in a cold sweat. Looking up again, there was no sign of the long-haired woman. Only that old man from earlier was still sitting in the corner. At this moment, the announcement reminded that the next stop was Guangling. Jack hurried off the train and even bumped into a man wearing a hat. He laughed self-deprecatingly. It was just a nightmare. Why get so scared like that? Jack had just taken 2 steps when he saw that the line he had just gotten off had long been temporarily closed due to an accident. Immediately after, the familiar sound of hitting rang out. Jack turned his head and saw that it was indeed that woman. He stiffly turned his neck, but the long-haired woman had come behind Jack and pushed him into the tunnel. However, the surveillance cameras didn't capture the woman. The case could only be closed as a suicide. When the station master finished telling this and had drunk his fill, he asked Dojung to leave the station. After Dojung went back, she told her responsible PD about her idea regarding the suicide incident at Guangling Station. Lena from the neighboring beauty channel came over to criticize, and said Dojung might as well switch to another genre. Horror themes have long been unwatched. The gloomy vibe will only make her lose followers.
알지도 못하면서 지가 뭘 한다고.
Dojung, with the idea of making everyone look at her in admiration, again brought a pot of good wine to see the station master, and asked if he had any more thrilling stories than the one about Guangling Station. The station master changed the subject, saying, "I checked your channel, and the view count is less than 100. Talking about this, Dojung felt sad. At first, when the channel was at its peak, it could get around 100,000 views, but Korea is such a small place. Urban legends have long been exhausted by major YouTubers. There are very few things left to talk about. Many people have already given up this line of work." But Dojung was unwilling to admit defeat. The station master, inspired by her enthusiasm, agreed to tell a second story. Once upon a time, there was a student who endured extremely painful torture. To obtain what she didn't have, she spent a lot of money on full facial plastic surgery, but saw a naturally beautiful girl named Miju on the train. Maybe it was because the plastic surgery girl's gaze was too direct. Miju couldn't help but stand up to get out of her sight. Unexpectedly, she ran into her former cram school teacher.
미주 뭔가 더 여성스러워진 것 같은데? 살이 빠졌나?
Miju already had a crush on him, and was about to ask about the teacher's situation. His official girlfriend happened to get on the train, and took the teacher's arm. Miju casually made an excuse to stay away from the couple, digesting the fact of her unrequited love alone. After getting off the train, she always felt like someone was following her, but every time she turned around, there were no suspicious people. Miju stepped onto the escalator with a heavy heart. The walls were covered with plastic surgery advertisements. In this country where the pressure to conform to beauty standards is most severe, being unattractive is like being sentenced to death. Miju was waiting for the train at the transfer station. Unexpectedly, the woman who had plastic surgery was right next to her, and praised her for having a beautiful nose. Although Miju found it strange, she politely thanked her. Unexpectedly, the woman kept repeating that sentence.
코가 너무 예쁘세요.
Feeling uneasy, Miju hurried to walk towards another carriage. She subconsciously moved closer to other passengers. When she turned around, the woman who had plastic surgery had actually disappeared. However, the reflection of a familiar figure appeared on the glass door. It turned out that the other party had hidden around the corner. Watching as the woman who had plastic surgery got closer and closer, the people around acted as if they hadn't noticed her. Miju took out her phone, wanting to take a photo of this scene, only to find that the camera couldn't capture the woman who had plastic surgery either. At this moment, the liquid in her hand spilled onto the ground, emitting white smoke caused by strong corrosion. Miju was startled and took off running. She ran to the underground parking lot, and was surrounded by signs for plastic surgery advertisements. Just then, the woman chased after her again. Miju hid in a nearby restroom, locked the door, and then called the police.
저 지금 지하철인데요. 어떤 미친 사람이 저한테 염산을 들고 쫓아오고 있거든요.
The police asked her to provide the detailed address, and then described the woman's features. Miju was just about to describe it in detail to the police, but realized she had only said she was being chased by a madman. How did the police on the other end of the phone know it was a woman? She lifted her stiff head, and saw the bottle of sulfuric acid being held up to the top of the cubicle. Immediately after, the woman leaned her body in, yet her arm was still held up at a height of about a person's height. In the end, the entire cup of sulfuric acid splashed onto Miju's face. The station master's story ended here. Dizzy from drinking, he lay down on the camp bed to catch up on sleep. Afterwards, Dojung went to Guanglin Station, where the plastic surgery woman incident had occurred, to gather material. She stayed up all night editing an episode of material. While checking it, she spotted a faint, indistinct ghostly figure inside the vending machine. Anyway, the view count for this episode finally picked up. Dojung went to thank the station master and listened to his third story. For most people, the subway is just a means of transportation, but for some homeless people, the subway station is a home that shelters them from wind and rain. This man's start wasn't bad. He was as ordinary as other office workers. No one expected he would gradually lose everything he had. His decent job was gone, then his family, and then his self-control. The man's life just kept declining like this. The money he had wasn't even enough to buy a pack of instant noodles. He could only occasionally reach into the coin slot of vending machines, or rummage through trash cans. On lucky days, he could still find a few coins, but on this day, the homeless man found a red coin. Not knowing what it was, he temporarily stuffed it into his pocket. He ran into a thug in the restroom, who even tried to rob the homeless man of his money. He took all the coins from the money bag. Since he didn't recognize the red coin, he simply threw it on the ground and left. The homeless man was filled with anger. Seeing that there was only a man in a suit in the opposite waiting area, he simply shouted in the late-night subway station. After all, no one would interfere with him. Just then, the homeless man spotted a strange red beverage cabinet. The currency indicated on it was exactly the kind he had found. The homeless man was very grateful and went over to insert the coin, and got a can of red, unmarked beverage. He pulled the tab, but there wasn't even a drop of water inside. Instead, the person in the opposite waiting area was gone. Only a suit and 2 red coins were left on the ground. The homeless man took the clothes to the restroom, and found a wallet in the pocket. He put on the suit and used the cash inside to buy a dinner. since there weren't many coins left, the homeless man fought back the urge to drink and returned to the station. He clutched the 2 newly found red coins, ready to try his luck again. What if this suit was really related to the vending machine? The homeless man had just gotten the second bottle of drink. When that thug came over to rob him again, in a panic, he quickly aimed at the thug and pulled the tab. Unexpectedly, the thug's legs gave way and he kneeled to the ground. He vanished on the spot, only his tattered clothes were left on the ground. The homeless man was confused by what he saw. When he saw the thug trapped inside the vending machine, and 3 more red coins appeared next to the clothes, the thug inside the vending machine then vanished. Though this incident defied common sense, the homeless man didn't care as long as he could get money. In the following days, the homeless man followed the same method, using this trick to get a lot of money every day. This method would only work in South Korea. If we switch to countries where online payments are used, even if we can make people disappear, we won't be able to find wallets containing cash. In short, the homeless man fell in love with the feeling of getting something for nothing, and gradually became wealthy. When he went to the convenience store, he didn't even bother to ask for change. After all, the more people disappeared, the more red coins there were. The homeless man never worried about running out of money. Thus, his problem of alcoholism resurfaced. That day, the homeless man stumbled back to the station drunkenly, and saw a man with long hair across from him, inserting a coin next to the red vending machine. The next second, the homeless man widened his eyes, and sobered up halfway in an instant. Wasn't that the person who inserted the coin for the first time himself? So the man in the suit he saw that day was another version of himself. Before the homeless man could think more, the other him across pulled the tab. The next second, the homeless man was locked inside the vending machine, and vanished without a trace. In no time, only an unclaimed piece of clothing was left on the ground. The station master finished his 3rd story. Turning around, he saw that Do-jung had long fallen asleep. She was dreaming sweetly, dreaming that her view counts had rebounded, and her responsible PD had finally confessed his feelings. Unfortunately, dreams must eventually be woken from. At this moment, Do-jung woke up from her workstation, and saw her responsible PD flirting with the beauty blogger Lena. As soon as that woman saw Do-jung's gaze, she deliberately got intimate with the responsible. Lena's action was clearly a deliberate provocation. Being frustrated in love was one thing, Lena even had many more fans than Do-jung. How could one swallow this insult? Do-jung could only go to the station master to vent. Apparently, she had already made the subway station office her own base. After hearing these complaints, the station master told Do-jung, "People always desire what they don't have. In fact, one can be happy just by looking at what one already has. Blindly pursuing what one doesn't have may cause one to lose everything." The station master said, "I'm seriously ill and don't have much time left. You shouldn't come again either." Do-jung said goodbye to the station master and prepared to go back to the company. Surprisingly, there was no one there today. In Do-jung's state of panic, the lights suddenly turned on. It turned out her subscriber count had been skyrocketing, so the company had specially prepared a surprise party. Do-jung happily checked each fan comment one by one. She noticed a strange user asking her to take down these videos. As a media person, Do-jung sensed there was a story to uncover, so she sent a private message to this fan, and arranged to meet them at a nearby cafe. After a while, a woman wearing sunglasses walked in, and sat anxiously across from Do-jung. She said she had encountered some strange things at the convenience store at Gwangnam Station. It was related to Gwangnam Church, a religious group that disappeared decades ago. The woman in sunglasses passionately pointed out that Gwangnam Station was built on the original site of Gwangnam Church's chapel. That was why strange things kept happening. After saying that, she took off her sunglasses, revealing her disabled right eye.
거기 가면 안 돼요. 거기 가면 다 죽는다고요. 영상들 다 내려야 된다고.
The woman in sunglasses ran away with her head in her hands. Do-jung couldn't help but search the internet for Gwangnam Church. She learned that on that day 50 years ago, a mass suicide incident occurred at Gwangnam Church. The death toll reached as many as 40. Believers believed this was a special ritual to achieve immortality. Others might have thought the woman in sunglasses was exaggerating, but Do-jung understood better than anyone else the principle that it's better to believe it exists than not. But the account had finally bounced back. She really couldn't bear to take down all the videos. During Do-jung's hesitation, not far away, suddenly came the sound of talking. She walked over cautiously, and saw that it was actually the responsible PD being intimate with Lena. Do-jung was speechless. This responsible PD had always been hot and cold towards her, doing things that were misleading. Only now did Do-jung confirm that she was just one of the many in his fish pond. At this moment, the PD came to invite Do-jung to dinner.
실은 어제 저녁에 같이 가려고 했는데 제가 저녁에 외근이어서.
Do-jung watched him lie without changing his expression, and couldn't help but clench the notebook in her hand. She bluntly said that if she had to eat with someone like him, it would be better to work. So in the evening, Do-jung continued to go find the station master. She didn't care how ugly the other person's expression was, and kept pestering the station master to tell another story. The station master was very confused upon hearing this. Didn't your subscriber count already reach 1 million? Can't you be satisfied even with that? Unexpectedly, Do-jung flew into a rage when she heard this. She needed new stories to maintain this affection. Do-jung glanced at the blood-stained toilet paper on the table and said, "Anyway, you won't live much longer. You might as well tell me all the stories you know before you die. It can be considered a good deed before you die." The station master smiled bitterly. "Then I'll tell one more story, with a protagonist very similar to you. You two are exactly the same, always living for others' attention. This girl is the beauty blogger Lena. Because she is beautiful and articulate, she has many fans in her livestream." One day, Lena touched a handful of golden unknown substance on the subway handrail. She took out a tissue to wipe it clean. This delay made her miss the time to get off the train. When she arrived at the company, she saw the responsible PD talking with Do-jung. She intentionally disrupted their atmosphere. That's why she said that previous comment, suggesting Do-jung change careers. Unexpectedly, afterwards, the responsible PD found Lena and told her not to be too harsh on Do-jung. Lena only said that mutual encouragement among peers was for Do-jung's own good. As soon as she finished speaking, she started bleeding from her nose. Lena went to the restroom to clean up the blood, and only then noticed several strange red spots on her palm. She went to the hospital for an examination. The doctor asked if she had touched anything dirty. Recently, Lena remembered that subway handrail. The doctor said, "I'll prescribe some medicine first, and we'll observe the situation."
여기 사인 좀 부탁드려요.
아, 그럼요. 선생님, 어떻게 알아보셨을까?
This was really awkward. Lena thought the doctor was asking for her autograph, not realizing that what he handed over was a consent form. In the evening, Lena took the subway home as usual. Thinking of the earlier misunderstanding, she couldn't help but feel awkward. As soon as she exited the subway station, she ran into Do-jung. Lena couldn't help but step forward to make her presence felt. She had always liked to sneer at YouTubers with few subscribers. In contrast, Do-jung just wanted to leave. Lena was halfway through her words when her nose started bleeding heavily. She rushed to the restroom to clean up, only to find her palm covered with black holes like a shower head. The next second, Lena woke up from her dream and checked her palm. Fortunately, there were no such terrifying scenes as in the dream. Outside the door, everyone was celebrating Do-jung's 1 million subscribers. Lena felt a surge of resentment. Why could this girl easily take away everyone's attention? These two are really funny. You're jealous of me. I'm jealous of you. And neither focuses on themselves. In the evening, Lena started bleeding from her nose again on the subway, and her palm really became pockmarked. She was startled and got off at the nearest station, then ran to the restroom to check her palm. She found that those pockmarked holes had spread all over her body. Even one side of her neck wasn't spared. If this continues, it will reach her face sooner or later. Lena pulled out the ointment. Unexpectedly, someone outside suddenly knocked on the door and asked if she was Lena. Lena unkindly chased the person away. Looking down, she saw that small saplings had actually grown out of the holes in the surface of her skin, and they quickly spread to her face. In the end, Lena died in the restroom stall, her body covered with flowers. After hearing this story, Do-jung thought the station master was just trying to scare her. Then she asked if he knew the story of Gwangnam Church. Records say that believers committed suicide together for the immortality of their leader, and even now, some people believe the leader is still alive. Do-jung was eager to interview members of Gwangnam Church, and asked the station master if he had any connections. On the other side, Detective Park Joo-ho from Mapo Police Station came to the company to find Do-jung, but she was out gathering material and not in the office. Do-jung stands in an empty subway station, because the station master said that a subway train would arrive at 3:34 on Friday, and as long as she boards that train, she can meet the person she wants to see. Do-jung waited anxiously on the platform. At 3:30, a cat's meow sounded. Do-jung found it strange and was about to step forward to check, when the lights above her head turned on brightly. A person carrying a cat carrier sat not far away playing with their phone. The next second, the announcement started announcing the station. The person playing with their phone didn't even lift their head. Only shrill cries came from the cat carrier. As soon as the train arrived, Do-jung hurried on board. She turned her head to look at that man, who was still sitting there playing with his phone. At this moment, the man lifted his head to look at Do-jung and stared at her. Do-jung hurriedly stood up and rushed towards another carriage. Unexpectedly, that man chased after her too. Do-jung sped up until all the lights in the carriage went out. She hurriedly turned on her phone's flashlight to check her surroundings, and found the cat carrier man standing not far away with his back to her. Immediately after, his head fell into the cat carrier. The headless body stumbled over. Do-jung let out a scream and took off running. At the critical moment, the door wouldn't open. Fortunately, the subway suddenly made an emergency stop. Do-jung pounced directly out the door. She watched the door behind her slowly close. Thankfully, the cat carrier man didn't chase after her. Her legs were almost weakened by fear. Do-jung quickly realized that the surrounding environment was unusual. The staircase entrance was dilapidated and worn, as if it had been abandoned for years. It was pitch black, making it impossible to see what was inside. Immediately after, a dilapidated train pulled in, and its door creaked open. On the ground lay a strangely shaped walkie-talkie. The scene shifts. The responsible PD asks the police what he needs from Do-jung. Park Joo-ho explains that because Do-jung mentioned in her video that she interviewed the station master, but the person in charge of the subway station isn't the one she interviewed. The man she spoke to was a missing person from 3 years ago. At the same time, Do-jung picks up the crackling walkie-talkie, and the voice of the station master comes from it.
자네는 늘 이야기를 궁금해했지만 정작 나에 대해서는 궁금해하지 않았지. 자네에게 들려줄 마지막 이야기는 내 이야기일세.
David is an ordinary employee at the subway station. Every day, he has endless night shifts to work. One day, he saw someone scurrying around in the tunnel at night, so he asked the security guardian to go check it out. Ian is that man with the cat carrier. He loves cats dearly and was in a hurry to feed the stray cats, so he said, "How could there be someone here at this hour?" David said they couldn't let any suspicious situation slip by. Wasn't there someone who wanted to come shoot a YouTube video last time? Ian had to go down with a flashlight to check. The pitch-black subway tunnel stretched endlessly with no end in sight. At a glance, there wasn't a single person in sight. Ian had to walk further in, while David took a nap in front of the monitors. Time had gotten quite late. He picked up the walkie-talkie and asked Ian if he had found anything. The latter said he hadn't seen anything. David swore he really saw someone in the tunnel, and urged Ian to keep searching further in. As soon as he finished speaking, David saw one of the camera feeds flicker a few times. He told Ian to check again along the way he had come. There was no response from the walkie-talkie. David had to go into the tunnel to check. Suddenly, a train behind him turned on its red lights. David found it strange and climbed up to check. Unexpectedly, a hand slapped against the window, scaring him into sitting down on the ground. Immediately after, scratching sounds came from the front of the train. David walked over, pulled open the door, and found no one in the cockpit. Just then, the train suddenly started moving, as if an invisible conductor was secretly controlling it. David couldn't stop the train, so he could only desperately pull open the cockpit door. The outside had long since changed appearance. The car windows were covered with blood-written incantations. Countless hands outside were slapping against the windows. David frantically reached for the emergency stop device, and finally managed to stop the train. Those bloodstains and hands also disappeared, but the train doors still wouldn't open. Just as David was burning with anxiety, Ian's voice came over the walkie-talkie. He picked it up to ask for help, saying he was trapped in the subway and couldn't get out. Ian's voice was intermittent, and a faint "I see you" could be heard. Hearing this, David calmed down and got up to check outside the window. Sure enough, he saw Ian not far away. However, before he could even be happy, he realized that someone was slipping Ian's head. David was terrified. The next second, the train started again. He had no way to escape and was thrown to the ground. This time, David never managed to escape. Now it's Do-jung who's trapped. David smiled outside and told her, "Didn't you want to see the bishop? This train will take you there." As soon as he finished speaking, the train started moving. Do-jung saw another version of herself outside the window. It can be inferred that the David outside isn't the real David either. After they get trapped by the train, a replacement appears outside.
우진 씨, 제가 재미있는 이야기 들려드릴까요?
The film ends here. Midnight Screening Appetizer, a collection of urban legends. It seems relatively casual and not a big-budget production, but the content of the several stories is diverse enough. The atmosphere building is quite sufficient, but it always falls flat at critical moments due to shoddy production. This is also a common issue with low-budget horror films. However, with a runtime of an hour and a half, it's packed full and has a tight pace. It has no suspicion of padding the plot. It can already be considered of passing quality among films of the same genre.